Alrighty, so today we are moving forward by talking about the Chicago Fire in the season preview. So, no doubt last year for the Chicago Fire, the tournament was finally over. After years of failure to not make it to the playoffs, and after simply just suffering that curse of never being able to good enough to end the longest drought that any active MLS team has had when it comes to making the playoffs, it finally ended last year with them making the playoffs for the first time since 2017, and now they're trying to do something that they haven't even done in even longer than the last time that they made it to the playoffs prior to this year, and that of course is make it back-to-back years. It's been almost 17 years since the Fire has made back-to-back playoffs. Not since 2009 was the last time that they made back-to-back playoffs, and back in the 2000, that was kind of almost the golden age for the Chicago Fire. Besides, their inaugural season winning MLS Cup. This was a team that was always a regular playoff appearance back in the 2000, and I think 2009 was kind of the year that ended that streak of 5 consecutive year the Chicago Fire made it to the playoffs. But yeah, it is hard to believe that it's been that long since this team have not been able to make it to the playoffs consecutive year. They tried to do it in 2012, didn't quite happen, and then they tried to do it in 2017 as well. Didn't happen either. So last season they finished 15, 8, and 11 and finished with 53 points. They were eliminated by the Philadelphia Union in the first round, but they did win a playoff series as well, and it would also be the first time they won a playoff series since 2009 as well. And I know some people say, does the play-in round count as the playoff series? I think so. I mean, you got to give it to this team that has been long been a tormented fan base and one of the most been and cursed fan base around the league. So I'm gonna count that as a playoff series win, even if it's just a play-in round. Obviously, their last MLS playoff appearance, it's got to be refreshing for Fire fans to see that their last playoff appearance is not 2017, isn't it? I mean, it's hard really every single season when I do a season preview, I have to mention their last playoff appearance was 2017, which is the longest active drought of any MLS team. But now that has officially ended. With the last playoff appearance was just last year, and then of course their last MLS Cup was back in '98. They still are the only team in MLS history to make it to MLS Cup in their inaugural year and winning the whole thing as well. San Diego came very close last year of breaking that, but alas, Chicago fans can still very happy to be proudly say that they are still the only MLS team to win MLS Cup in their expansion season, and also this is the longest out of any team that have won an MLS Cup between now since the last MLS Cup that they of course has had. Now look at the last 5 seasons for the Chicago Fire. So last season they finished 15, 8, and 11 and finished with 53 points, by far the best season that this team has had in quite some while, but they were eliminated by the Philadelphia Union in the first round. In 2024, they finished with a 7, 9, and 18 record for with just 30 points. Obviously, did not make it to the playoffs. 2023, they finished with a 10, 10, and 14 record, finished with 40 points. Also did not make it to the playoffs. In 2022, they finished 10, 9, and 15 and finished with 39 points. Didn't make the playoffs. And then in 2021, they finished 9, 7, and 18 with 34 points. Also did not make it to the playoffs. Now, looking at some of the signings that they have this offseason. So, what's kind of interesting about some of the signings that they had this offseason. I would have was expecting them maybe go heavily on the defensive front because obviously the defense is the biggest issue of this team last season. I mean, as much as this team was very fun to watch and they were a high flying attacking team scoring among the most goal in MLS last season, they were also among one of the worst defensive team as well. They conceded a lot of goals, and I thought they would really go heavy on the defensive front. And in some way, they kind of did bring in a new center back in Bukazi, the South African center back that most likely could be a regular starter to do this team as well. Might challenge Joel Waterman or even Jack Elliott for that spot. But besides that, they kind of made improvement in terms of elsewhere as well, including bringing a new midfielder in Antoine Charles, who potentially could be a starter for this team. Puso Ginny, I think that's how you say it. I might have absolutely butchered that name. Another South African player coming into this league. And then, most importantly, they brought in Robin Lod. It's going to be so weird seeing Robin Lod in a Chicago Fire jersey. As a Minnesota United fan, and seeing him wearing that Loons jersey all the time, it just kind of feels surreal to see him wear a different jersey, not the black and blue that he has wear ever since he came in to the league. And I would definitely be rooting for Robin Lod throughout this season. As I mentioned before, I always root for former Loons player, except for know who is in goal last season, and then a certain guy called Reynoso. So that I'm pretty sure a lot of Loons fan can agree not to root for him because of certain circumstances that led to his exit. But Robin Lod definitely one of the most loved player in the fan base, and it's kind of sad to see that he eventually move on. I mean, the writings were kind of on the wall, but I would have never expected him to join another MLS team. And again, it's gonna be so weird seeing him wearing a different jersey. But I definitely wish him the best. Except when, of course, Chicago play against Minnesota, which they will play. I believe they'll play against them again this year, if I'm not mistaken. The other player that they, of course, bought is Josh Cohen, who is the backup goalkeeper, and maybe be a starting goalkeeper if Chris Brady does get sold off this off season. Looking at outs in this team, so you got Brian Gutierrez, the big one that is no longer in this team. He decided to go to Chivas, which again I'm not quite sure if that's the best decision, considering that we have seen a lot of MLS players decided to go to Liga MX, and it hasn't worked out whatsoever, and especially Chivas as well, a team that have taken a couple of MLS players in the past. Didn't quite worked out whatsoever as well. They also let go of Giorgio Tutsias, who is now joining with FC Lugano on a permanent deal. They also let go of Kellen Falstam, who's now going to Poland and finally got his dream move to go to Europe, even though it's kind of weird that he decided to do it now instead of a couple of years ago. They also let go of Tom Barlow, who's now with FC Cincinnati. Justin Reynolds, who's with Sporting KC. Chase Gasper, of course, retired this offseason. And then they decided not to renew the loan of Renriku Kurami, who's now back to actually who was he back to? I forgot which is the team that he was back to, but they didn't renew his loan. Now look at the first 5 games of the season for the Chicago Fire. So they go on the road in their first game against the Houston Dynamo before playing against Montreal on February 28th. Then they go on the road to face against Columbus before returning home to face against DC United. Then they go on the road to face against the Philadelphia Union. So there are some easy games out there. There also are some tough games. The two road games besides the Houston one might be relatively tough. And then the last 5 games of the season, they go on the road to face against New England before go on the road to face against Atlanta United. They return home to face against Orlando City before go on the road to face against the Colorado Rapids before returning home to face against the Columbus Crew on decision day. So just like the first 5 games, the last 5 games it's a mixture of some easy opponent that they might face and some tough opponents that they might face to finish off the season. Looking at the strength of this team, it's obviously the attack. I mean, there's a reason why I think this attack is going to be electric again. I mean, when you have the likes of Hugo Kuipers, who was absolutely phenomenal last season, and also Philip Zincanago among the top 3 goal contribution last season as well, the attack is going to be good. And the fact that they even added a little bit more by bringing this so guy that seems like he's probably going to be one of the depth player in that winger position. Yeah, I think this attack is going to be good. And if Bamba could, what's kind of interesting that we always talk about Kuipers and Seikanago, but Bamba also had a pretty good season last year as well. Though there are signs that said that maybe they might be moving on for him and maybe get somebody even better. Though that free-headed monster of Bamba, Kuipers and Ziganago, yeah, that's gonna really fill this attack. I would not be surprised if they score 60 plus goal once again this season. But at the same time, I also wouldn't be surprised if they concede 60 plus goals again because obviously the biggest weakness of this team is on the defensive front. And again, I know they have kind of addressed that by bringing in Bukazi, the South African center back, and we'll see whether or not if he's going to push himself into the center back row and be a key piece to fix what was just a really bad defense last season. But even with that, I don't know if they did enough when it comes to improving their defense as well. I mean, this back line for the most part has kind of been very similar to last season as well. So yeah, because of the fact that they didn't really change too much and maybe just add one center back, I'm a little surprised that they did decide not to improve their back line and really go heavy on that. And that's kind of perfectly transition in terms of my first big question of this team. Did they did enough to improve their back line? And my answer right now is no. I don't think they did enough in terms of improving that back line. Obviously, that could be different if because he decided to be the guys that the guy that he is advertised to be a very good player and can really slot into that role alongside with either Jack Elliott or Joel Waterman. I think there's no doubt that the back line has definitely improved, but there's that question of the fact that if that of course this happened, and also you got to remember, if Chris Brady is going to be sold off, especially in the summer transfer window, because there's been a lot of talks that he might be sold off for a huge amount of money because of the upside that he has. Now all of a sudden you just lost your goalkeeper that last year I even said in my moving forward series the reason why the Chicago Fire didn't have probably the worst defensive record in league history last season is because Chris Brady at times were bailing this back line left, right, and center because yeah, I mean that's just how bad that back line was throughout last season, and if they lose him, I mean it just feels like not only they did not do enough to improve their back line, but they might have even regressed when it comes to that spot. How will the reshape midfield for this Fire team would looks like? So something that I think is kind of a little under the radar for this Fire team is that they definitely reshape their midfield a lot. Gone are the days of Brian Gutierrez and Kellen Acosta controlling the midfield, and now you brought in this guy called Antoine Siltros. I believe he played for AIF in Sweden as well. Pretty good team that is probably will be slot in straight away in that midfield, and then alongside with Robin Lod as well. I'm very interested to see how he's going to do in this system. He's a very versatile kind of player, and although I know he's not as good as he has been, and he has kind of slowed down in terms of the quality. I think maybe a big part of the reason why he didn't really had as good of a season last year with the Loons compared to what I think he could have a good season is the fact that he just doesn't really fit the system that Eric Ramsey does. It feels like he fits more in the system that Greg Berhalter put, and if that is going to be the case, I mean he is going to be a key guy to really drive this Fire team. And like I said this reshaped midfield is going to be really good. I even haven't even mentioned about Alan Franco as well, a guy that didn't really play too much last year, and they're not going to have him for the first half of the season. I believe he's still coming back from an injury. So this is where, as I mentioned, Robin Lod he's going to get some minutes for this team, and he's if he is going to look like what he was all these years with the Loons being one of the most consistent producer in this team, especially in this new system. Yeah, this reshaped midfield is going to be really good, and that's already on top of the attack being awesome for this team. And then last but not least, the depth. I think that is kind of one area that I think the Fire might be still trying to promote within. Well, the thing about the Chicago Fire is that they have a really good academy. I mean, the Chicago area does have some of the richest youth talent among the league, so they're definitely going to look to promote within in terms of the fullback position, maybe even in the number 9 depth chart as well, because it is kind of a little bit concerning the fact that Hugo Kuipers is really the only number 9 that ring quality. There is a huge drop off after that as well. And unless if they decided to maybe put Zikanago as a false 9 and maybe push Robin Lund more on an advanced position, more of a creative player, like what we've seen at times when he was with Minnesota. Yeah, that is a little bit concerned. The fact that the number 9 depth chart is really or and that if they do decided to move on from Hugo Kuipers, which I wouldn't be surprised he might get some offer overseas as well because of how good he's been in. I might maybe of course could be a concern, or unless of course they decide to get Robert Lewandowski as they've been rumored to get him for a while now. And I think the only reason why Lewandowski hasn't really come to this team is mainly because it kind of makes no sense for them to bring Lewandowski to this team, consider they already have a star number 9. Unless if Hugo Kuipers does move on from this team, I don't think Lewandowski is going to come to this team. But if Kuipers does move on, I wouldn't be surprised. They might be heavily interested in terms of trying to get Lewandowski to play for this team, especially with the way that this ownership group and especially this new ownership group has been very ambitious when it comes to making some signing and getting some big name players. Now, look at the team and the high that I put. I'm gonna put them in 6th place, which I know for Fire fans they might not think that that's really high. But it's still an improvement compared to last season when they finished eighth. The reason why I don't put them too high on this list is because I still have a lot of concern about the defense. The defense, I think, is going to really help this team down. This team kind of reminds me of a little bit of the LA Galaxy in the past, where the Galaxy have a very good electric attack, but a big reason why they can't really take the next step is because the defense kind of hold them back at time, and I think that's going to be the case. Now, in terms of low, I'm going to put them outside of the playoff position. I know Fire fans would not like me to say that they might miss out on the playoffs again, consider that's just been kind of the common denominator with this team all these years. But again, after such a great season that like they had last year, it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not if they can improve. And all signs in terms of past history have said that that has not been the case. Like I said, this team have not made the playoffs in back-to-back years since 2009, and that every time we think that they might take the next step, like what we saw back in 2017 and even in 2012 to some extent, they haven't really quite do so. And then not to mention, if the defense going to be really bad to this team, and the attack can't really just kind of mitigate how bad at times this defense is, yeah, do not be surprised if the Fire might be back to the same problem and the same frustration that they've been dealing with for pretty much a decade now. It's hard to believe this team have only made the playoff three times since 2009. Like in a span of 17 years, only three playoff appearances and not even winning a playoff round. There's a reason why I've said that the Chicago Fire is considered to be one of the most depressing team to see, and that this is why for a long time I've been almost kind of rooting for this team, because I feel the pain that Fire fans has to deal with. As a Quakes fan myself, I feel the pain and the suffering that they had to deal with, and now this is probably the most optimistic that they have when it comes to the direction this team has gone in. And maybe now it feels like this is where the ownership have said that now it feels like there is a change of momentum, and that now this team seems like it's going back to the good old days in the 2000s, when it's hard to believe that this team used to be a very good team and used to be one of the powerhouse in the East back in the 2000, and it just completely fall apart back in the 2010s and even into the 2020s as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the Chicago Fire in the season preview. As always, if you're a Fire fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, the free big question, and your prediction for this season as well? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.